In the grand tapestry of history, few stories are as captivating and inspiring as the rise of the United States of America. From its humble beginnings as a collection of British colonies on the eastern edge of North America, America embarked on an epic journey that would see it transform into a global superpower, shaping the destiny of nations and leaving an indelible mark on the world stage. This is the story of that remarkable journey, a testament to the enduring power of human spirit, resilience, and the pursuit of freedom. Our story begins in the 18th century, a time of profound intellectual and political ferment. The American colonies, long accustomed to a degree of self-governance, chafed under increasingly restrictive British rule. The cry of no taxation without representation resonated throughout the colonies as tensions escalated over unfair taxes and trade restrictions. A new spirit of independence was taking hold, fueled by Enlightenment ideals and the belief that government should be accountable to the governed. This burgeoning spirit of independence ignited into a full-blown revolution in 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord marking the start of the American Revolutionary War. Outnumbered and outgunned, the American colonists, led by a ragtag army of farmers, shopkeepers, and citizen soldiers, faced the might of the British Empire. The odds were stacked against them, but the Americans were determined to fight for their freedom, their liberty, and their right to self-determination. The American Revolution was more than just a military conflict. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of the people. It was a crucible that forged a new nation and gave birth to a new kind of citizen, the American. At the forefront of this struggle were extraordinary individuals who would forever etch their names in the annals of history. Men like George Washington, the stoic Virginian who would become the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, and later, the first president of the United States, embodied the courage, determination, and unwavering belief in the cause of liberty that defined the American spirit. Thomas Jefferson, the brilliant polymath, penned the immortal words of the Declaration of Independence, a document that proclaimed to the world that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These powerful words, resonating with the ideals of the Enlightenment, became a beacon of hope for oppressed people around the world, and would serve as the foundation for the United States Constitution. The road to independence was long and arduous, marked by bitter winters, crushing defeats, and moments of despair. The winter encampment at Valley Forge, where Washington's army endured unimaginable hardships, tested the resolve of even the most stalwart patriots. Yet, through it all, the American spirit endured, fueled by an unwavering belief in their cause and the hope for a better future. After a long and bloody conflict, the American colonists emerged victorious, securing their independence from Great Britain in 1783. The newly formed United States of America faced the daunting task of building a nation from scratch. The Founding Fathers, guided by the principles of Enlightenment thought and their own experiences with British tyranny, set out to create a government that would safeguard the hard-won freedoms they had fought so valiantly to secure. The result was the United States Constitution, a remarkable document that established a system of government based on the principles of popular sovereignty, limited government, separation of powers, checks and balances, and federalism. The Constitution, ratified in 1788, created a framework for a more perfect union, one that sought to balance the rights of individual states with the need for a strong central government. The early years of the Republic were not without their challenges. The fledgling nation faced internal divisions, economic struggles, and threats from foreign powers. Yet, through it all, the American experiment in democracy endured, proving to be more resilient and adaptable than its critics had imagined. The United States expanded westward, driven by a belief in manifest destiny and the pursuit of new opportunities. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubled the size of the nation and opened up vast new territories for exploration and settlement. As the United States expanded westward, it did so at the expense of the indigenous peoples who had called this land home for centuries. The forced removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands, often through brutal and inhumane treatment, remains a dark chapter in American history. The Trail of Tears, the forced relocation of the Cherokee Nation from their homelands in the southeast to Indian Territory, which is present-day Oklahoma, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of westward expansion. The issue of slavery, a moral stain on the nation since its founding, would eventually lead to the American Civil War. The Southern states, economically dependent on slave labor, seceded from the Union in 1860 after the election of Abraham Lincoln, a staunch opponent of slavery, as president. The Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in American history, tested the very fabric of the nation, pitting brother against brother in a fight to determine the future of the Union. Led by President Lincoln, who eloquently articulated the cause of freedom and unity, the Union ultimately prevailed in 1865, preserving the nation and ending the scourge of slavery. The Civil War, while a tragic chapter in American history, also marked a turning point, paving the way for the abolition of slavery and the eventual realization of civil rights for all Americans. The latter half of the 19th century saw the United States continue its westward expansion, fueled by a belief in manifest destiny, the idea that it was America's God-given right to expand its dominion and spread its influence across the continent. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, connected the East Coast to the West Coast, facilitating trade, communication, and further westward migration. The American West, once a vast and untamed frontier, was rapidly transformed by the arrival of settlers, ranchers, miners, and entrepreneurs. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 sparked a massive gold rush, drawing thousands of fortune seekers to the West Coast. The cattle industry boomed, with cowboys driving herds of longhorns across the open range to railheads in Kansas and Missouri. However, this westward expansion came at a steep price for the Native American tribes who had long called these lands home. The Indian Wars, a series of conflicts between the U.S. Army and various Native American tribes, raged throughout the latter half of the 19th century, resulting in the displacement and decimation of countless Native American communities. The Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, where Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and his entire command were wiped out by a combined force of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors, became a symbol of Native American resistance to American expansion. The 20th century dawned with the United States emerging as a major player on the world stage. The Spanish-American War in 1898, sparked by the sinking of the U.S.S. Maine in Havana Harbor, marked America's entry into the arena of global power politics. The war resulted in the United States acquiring Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines, expanding its influence in the Caribbean and the Pacific. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 presented the United States with a moral and strategic dilemma. President Woodrow Wilson, initially committed to a policy of neutrality, eventually led the nation into war in 1917, declaring that the world must be made safe for democracy. The Doughboys, as American soldiers were known, arrived on the battlefields of Europe at a critical juncture, helping to turn the tide against Germany and its allies. Following the war, the United States retreated into a period of isolationism, reluctant to become entangled in European affairs. However, the rise of fascism and the outbreak of World War II in 1939 once again drew America into the global conflict. The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, as President Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared, galvanized the nation and propelled the United States into the war against the Axis powers. The end of World War II in 1945 marked the beginning of a new era, one dominated by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War, as it came to be known, was a global ideological struggle between two superpowers with vastly different visions for the future. The United States emerged from the war as a global superpower, its economy booming, and its military might unmatched. The Soviet Union, though devastated by the war, had emerged as a major military power with its own sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. The Cold War was a time of high tension and anxiety, with the constant threat of nuclear war hanging over the world. The United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a costly arms race, developing increasingly powerful nuclear weapons. Proxy wars erupted around the globe as the two superpowers vied for influence in Korea, Vietnam, and elsewhere. Domestically, the United States grappled with the legacy of racial segregation and discrimination. The Civil Rights Movement, led by courageous men and women like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and John Lewis, challenged the Jim Crow laws that had enforced racial segregation in the South for decades. Through peaceful protests, sit-ins, and marches, the Civil Rights Movement brought about a sea change in American society, leading to the passage of landmark legislation that outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.